Now you are ready to come up with a plan to deliver digital custom experience. This is for your DDE assignment, task 3, December 2019. Before you do anything, take a full grip of what you've done up to now. If I were you, I'll take a piece of paper and map all my findings and the recommendations I've made so it's very visible to me. So I also don't miss these as I go on to come up with my plan. Starting from understanding the subject of customer loyalty and engagement using the loyalty ladder and engagement ladder, you have gone on to develop a segment and a persona that is your most loyal and engaged, or that has the potential to be loyal and engaged. There onwards, you've come up with the analytics required to further understand their digital consumer behavior. If it's B2B, what's the behavior of that customer? You've set metrics and even come up with a dashboard that will show you whether the level of loyalty, level of engagement for this persona is moving positively or negatively. There onwards, you've gone and set up two solid justified objectives which are to drive custom experience for this loyal segment. And the following plan is based on those two objectives. And everything you say now onwards should help achieve those two objectives, but respect the findings that you have brought from the earlier tasks. If you don't link these well, and if the flow is not right, you will not achieve the objective. And the other point here is just doing a standard plan or a SOSTAC type of plan will not get you the marks. You got to flavor this into custom experience delivering plan, which finally results in achieving higher loyalty, high engagement for that specific segment persona that you're looking at. So that's the starting background for you to get on to this plan. So to start with, you are required to come up with your strategies or strategy for what you plan to do. In other words, for the two objectives you set, what are your strategies? So your strategies could be written under a social media strategy, it could be a data strategy, it could be a brand strategy, it could be a brand and positioning strategy. So what are those strategies? It could be your online value proposition strategy, OVP strategy. So try to figure out two specific strategies that's going to help you achieve those objectives. Of course, those strategies are brought forward based on some of the gaps you also found. Now, for example, let's take a bit of a broad one. Let's say you want to set a brand and positioning strategy. Now, one of the best benchmarks of that is what McDonald's, which was a traditional brand of just selling burgers cheerfully, fast, in a physical outlet around the world, they set a objective to digitalize that brand, keeping in mind the emerging digital consumer behavior. And in that context, they set a vision, and that vision was to be a modern, progressive burger company. So, a strategy to modernize and digitalize your brand and to position it as a digital friendly digital brand. So, that could be an area that you want to talk about. So, what are you going to do with your brand values, your brand personality, your brand identity factors? If you recall identity from your other studies, your symbolism of the company, McDonald's has gone about setting their kiosks which are digital, you can swipe and eat now, even in Colombo. Your communications, how you use certain communications which are more digitalized, and your behaviors, the way people behave inside McDonald's, how the way the staff behaves compared to welcoming you cheerfully. Now you go to a digital kiosk. So there could be certain strategies that you could benchmark and show what your company could do for your loyal customers to be able to get there. So I recommend you to read or go on YouTube a bit about McDonald's. McDonald's finally is going to go towards loyalty. McDonald's has a plan to connect all their point of sale and your data to figure out who exactly visits their outlet to a level that they will know you in London and in Colombo and in New York, and they will be able to address you by the name, and they will be able to personalize their communications with you. Now that's unbelievable. That's how they plan to cater to their loyal base and to improve their engagement. So you could bring such benchmarks, break this area into a couple of subheadings, and then recommend what the strategy is going to do for you. So in that, keep it at a strategy level. Then obviously that strategy later you will justify based on the tactics, that is actually your task 3B, what tactics are going to use for that specific strategy. So that's where the app comes on board. That's where your data capture comes on board. That's where your kiosks come on board. So you could look at the tactics that are required. Again, benchmark what other companies have done. Say you talk about app, you got to bring theory on success of app, what factors are required for an app to be effective. And there onwards, you would recommend what your company would do to make your app strategy effective. So likewise, set based on the objectives that you set, the strategy to support that objective, you will come up with 1, 2, or 3 specific tactics. And those tactics could come from multi aspects. We just spoke about the app option. Now another option, let's say you are moving into a data strategy. That is task 3A. So talk about the data strategy. How do you capture data? How do you bring big data? How do you analyze real-time data so that you can give a better personalized real-time experience to your loyal customer? Again, you benchmark. Of course, you bring the right theory and you recommend that strategy. And there onwards, at the tactical level, it boils down to figuring out which platform are you going to work with, which type of vendors are options. For an example, you might think of a Salesforce solution coupled with Chatter and Radiant 6 or any other solution that's going to help you to play your big data game. And remember, when you recommend strategy, when you recommend tactics, you got to justify that based on your company's current capabilities. Are you a laggard? Are you a managed level? Are you an optimized company? What you recommend for Cinnamon Grand, you can't recommend for Spinner Cafe. Very clear. So that's going to be where the pass and fail is going to be decided. So there onwards, after you set your tactic mix for each of the strategies, you will go on to set a Gantt chart, which is like your action plan. Please refer your action plans from SOSTAC in the last chapter on Shafi, which gives you details of what you do by which date, week, by which month. If there's a vendor selection process, a RFP has to be done, a request for proposal. Even that level of detail, which week is that going to happen? When are you going to do data migration? When are you going to cut over to your new website? How do you plan to launch your Instagram? Or is there a specific user-generated campaign that you want to create to support your loyal customers? You got to be very specific. And when do you plan to brief some of your management with regard to the new reporting structure? Because sometimes you might come up with a new dashboard that most of the management of the company is not used to. Try to make this Gantt chart, your action plan, real as possible. And at the end of that chart, try to make a couple of comments. Why have you set a particular action before the other? Why would X need to be done before Y is done? Then it also shows your sequencing of your action. It's not just a cut, chop, pick Gantt chart. It has to make sense. There onwards comes resources. So what resources do you require to achieve this? You can't just wake up in the morning and start integrating all your point of sale and McDonald's, 35,000 around the world. Now that's not going to be easy. So you got to meaningfully look at human resource requirements as well as financial requirements. And when you do that, benchmark companies who have done such changes, who have established data strategies. If you are talking about implementing, let's say, Hootsuite or Social Sprout or any other platform, what are the current costs they charge you for that? So you can put a budget, indicative budget on maybe 5 to 6 key items, areas, and justify that based on what basis did you come up with those specific numbers. And that will always be a benchmark, or it could always be an estimation. There onwards, you will have to measure this plan. Examiner talks about the metrics and the analytics. So obviously you are going to refer to the dashboard that you set and highlight what factors in that dashboard will help you to see if this goal or objective you set and the strategy and the tactic is now moving in the right direction. So bring the right metrics. It could be your customer effort score. You are going to track to see whether that is is improving and people are interacting easier if they are falling into a loyal customer base. You will obviously look at NPS. You will look at engagement rates to see whether the skills are the nexus customers now engaging on the YouTube far more effectively. How do you track? What metrics are you going to use to track that? But don't forget the dashboard you already set. You're always free to add a couple of new metrics to support some of the new recommendations that you've made. Finally, the examiner asks about general management improvements, just to see whether you understand there are other things that needs to fall in place for this to happen. This is an area for the A grades, the ones who are looking to go to the next level. If you go in Dave Shafi's book, you will find an area called digital transformation. So examiner is asking, do you know what is required to transform yourself digitally? I've shared a Deloitte article with you on digital readiness. These are the areas you could bring some concept to support what is required. Example, there might be requirement for a structural change in your company to support these digital initiatives. As remember, at this level, we are not about likes and shares and then putting a page that is looking good and hits and bounce rates happen. This is a little bit more intelligent than that. This is at a management level. So try to address one or two management issues of digitally transforming a company. The articles I shared with you from McKinsey, the KPMG, Shafi, keep scrolling down until you find the digital transformation. One or two points there would show how a particular structural change might help. A cloud computing game over time has to happen if they want to make this work. So look at a couple of those to support what you're saying. And finally, all what you said has to be clearly improving customer loyalty and customer engagement. So in the PR Smith's loyalty ladder, your customer should be moving up the ladder to that collaborative level from pure reviews and ratings. So you got to show with an example how a company has achieved it and how what you propose will also help to achieve that. It's a bit of work. You might want to watch this video a couple of times and list down the key points I've said. Examiner has already given you a structure and I don't want to confuse that. Use it, but add specifics based on the things we talked about. The slides that I sent you with McKinsey, KPMG and some of the other examples will be critical. So all the best to get a solid digital customer experience plan done.